Hi, my name's Peyton, and this is my final paper project over it is called The Death of Creativity, and it's a study over the case of Andy Warhol Foundation v. Goldsmith. And just for context for this picture, this black and white image was a photograph taken by Goldsmith, and this more colorful image right here was created by Andy Warhol. And because Andy Warhol used this original picture as a reference for his creation, it created a big fair use case out of this. Um, so to start my outline, I'll start with me and my research, then my research questions, my argument, findings, discussion, conclusions, and next steps, and I'll end with a works cited page and questions at the end. Um, to start me and my research, honestly, I fell on this topic on accident. Um, when I was looking for cases to discuss in this paper, I didn't really know what to do, and I ended up stumbling upon Andy Warhol v. Goldsmith. Um, and I think it really struck me. It's because this case had so many implications for art. And when you have laws that affect art, it affects art all across the United States, affects how it's made and distributed. And I think that's just really, really substantial and important to me. So, so here are my research questions. Um, my first one is, what does this ruling of innovation mean for art? Um, and then my second one is, what are the consequences for interpreting art as needing to be innovative in the digital age of media? So essentially, my argument is that the judges in this case don't understand how art works. And of course, I've shown this misunderstanding through their ruling by undermining artists' creativity, focusing on an unachievable goal of innovation, and stressing the idea of making something new. So here are three of my findings from my primary source. And these are indirect quotes from one of the dissenting opinions from one of the judges. And what they said were um, essentially is that no matter if the piece adds significant new expression, meaning, or message, if it is not directly critiquing the original piece, the piece would no longer receive credit under Factor 1 of fair use and would likely lose in a copyright infringement suit. So this goes back to undermining creativity. With this ruling, all the judges are focusing on is, are they directly critiquing the original piece? And if they're not, if they're doing anything else of artistic expression, it doesn't matter. They would no longer receive credit under Factor 1 of fair use. And losing one credit, they could likely lose in a copyright infringement suit, with there only being four factors. Um, and on to the second one. The decision was led through the idea of purpose and character of artistic borrowing, even though the borrower has made work out of existing materials. And I think this focuses on the idea of sort of attaining this idea of innovation in art when it's not really possible. Um, yeah, the decision uh, focuses on the idea or the purpose and character of artistic borrowing, but like new purpose and character. Even though borrowing exists in art, that's how art works. Um, Art is like a bunch of borrowers. They take uh, things from existing materials and mesh different things together and make something new. That's how it works. And what makes this ruling all the more strange Um, for the final one, overall, the majority's decision in this case has no continuity between the existing copyright law because of the lack of acknowledgement in the importance of transformative copying in art. And this goes back to stressing the idea of making something new. Um, they really wanted to stress making something new, even though in previous cases, um, it wasn't like this. Um, and this transformative copying, or this transformativeness was not really discussed in previous cases. And so they're really stressing making something completely new, which is, more bizarre and why this case is so important. So, what are the consequences for interpreting art as needing to be innovative in the digital age of media? Well, I think with the ruling of this case, most things on the internet are probably susceptible to copyright infringement. One thing that came to mind were fan fictions. These works heavily utilize characters, settings, themes from previous works, but writers still put a lot of work into making their fan fictions their own, adding new characters, settings, putting characters in different scenarios. It's not a direct copying, but I feel with this ruling, fan fiction would be written off mainly as copies of original work when they're not really. Um, and I feel that's because the main crutch for this innovation argument hinges on person's use of pre-existing material, um, despite them even transforming those original works. And I feel like memes could even fall under copyright infringement. And while memes skew more heavily towards a critique, uh, usually, if a meme doesn't quite hit that critique mark completely, um, memes often use uh, blatant copies of uh, movies, TV, and maybe even paintings, other artwork with minor edits. And I feel without that critique, they could be very susceptible to a potential copyright infringement. So, in conclusion, um, what does this ruling of innovation mean for art? Um, well, I guess at some point it's going to be nearly impossible to generate brand new ideas. And I think this shows why this court or Supreme Court lacks an understanding of what art is. It's because art has worked for thousands of years, mashing the old together to make something new. That's how it's worked. Um, but due to this case and its ruling, um, the like copyright could become incredibly strict and hinder artistic creativity and freedom. Um, and honestly, I hope this research gets people to understand what artists do and really show how reinventing the wheel for artists is completely impossible. Making something brand new doesn't really work super well um, because of that mashing of the old together and the pre-existing to make something new. Um, I honestly hope people um, write about this case. I haven't really seen much written, and that was one of the main struggles of finding sources for this uh, case. And I think that might be because this case is relatively new, but it has major implications for artists, and I feel like that needs to be better known. And maybe people could consider how this law could potentially be changed in future research, and maybe even focus on the flaws with this ruling and maybe show the contradictions between previous cases. And all right, here are my resources or references, and thank you. If you have any questions, you can contact me at Peyton Gasser at this email.